Hi, my name is Firas. Today I'm going to start my elementary course in 3D Studio Max. It's a very basics course and it's aimed for my student that having the first experience with dealing with 3D Studio Max. So in this course I will start it or divide it as a units. Each unit will usually goes for a specific topic and we might need for more than one lecture for each unit. So for example, this unit is specifically for as an introduction and that's the first lecture in it. So in our first lecture today, elementary course, we're going to talk about an introduction, a basic introduction to what is a 3D Studio Max, or an introduction to 3D Max itself. So as you can see, there is the results maybe some of you maybe have a basic understanding of what 3D Studio Max, why we use the 3D Studio Max, and there might be a big misunderstanding in the existence of why the 3D Studio Max exists, who should use it, and where we use it, and that's really need to be explained. That's why I prepared this lecture to help you to understand this topic. So in this lecture we're going to have trying to understand what is 3D Studio Max, why we use the 3D Studio Max, and what's the main field that 3D Studio Max actually cover. So what is Max? It depends on what a couple of definitions that I got and a couple of information that I got from Wikipedia. As a definition, it started by 3D Studio Max, and 3D Studio S, and then 3D Studio Max is a professional, as a development of a software, or as a naming, is just a professional 3D computer graphical program for making 3D animation models, games, and basically based for Microsoft Windows platform. Most of the people aim to be use it for architectural visualization, and that's you can read if you are really with the reading that detail. You can just pause it and read it in more detail. So Max basically is a software prepared by Autodesk, and it's aimed for architectural visualization and design and other group of purposes, and it's one of the most common used application now made by Autodesk itself. So that's the important question. Why we use the 3D Studio Max? So the first use is for architectural visualization, and for me as an architect, and most of my students actually are architects. So yes, that's the first use, or that's the most common use actually. It's to make a visualization. So you can see from this nice image, it's been made by a very lovely, powerful group called Evermotion. That's their website. You can have a go and look. They have really awesome stuff. You can see it's, if you put this sheet as an architectural student, or even as a professional architect, print out this kind of quality of work, it's gonna stun the client and really got his attention. And in reality, if you see, it's very basic design, and as you can see, the house is very basic and very simple, while the client get a really nice indication that's a very beautiful image, and you might even convince him with a very basic design. And the reason is that you have a really strong visualization here, and that's really a trick as a student, or even as a professional architect. You need to really understand that the architectural visualization is a really important aspect to be considered in your submission. So you might have a good, or even sometimes weak, or a middle level of the architectural design, but with your architectural visualization you can make a really good indication for the client and prevent him from rejecting the work that you are submitting for. You can see from this architectural visualization, it's a very sunny, brighty daylight, just make you feel happy and really happy. It's like the indication you get from this strong sun, strong shadows, and this this mood you can create inside you. That's one of the shots or one of the hits that the architectural visualization can make. Well, in this shot again, like you see the cloudy and how it's gonna change the mood. The long shadows give you like it's early morning, or actually it's a late afternoon. So you see how the mood actually changed. The materials might give you more warmer indication. It's actually a little bit of you can notice that a difference between this image and how it's like a brighty. I feel like it's a midday, while this you give you like a more relaxing late afternoon timing. So again, the mood is changing, and that's also what architectural visualization can do, and that's what you have actually to learn in 3D Studio Max. Again, another shot here and to help you to understand the architectural visualization, and here I'm focusing in these shots on the exterior images. And again, this image from Evermotion, you can see here in the visualization that the architect or the Max guy who did this is really genius. You can see that there's, in the visualization itself, you have to make the background, which is here the blue sky with the cloud, which is actually an image. So let's have a look on how the visualizer divided the work. So first the background image, which is this, that's number one, and then this trees, which could be a part of the image used. So let's assume that they are not, or a different image. So we have one, the sky, the two, this background tree. You can distinguish by the difference of the color here. And then three, the trees, exactly, that's a 3D tree, and they are located exactly, and those are the same behind this building. So that's the third layer. So the first layer, the sky, the second layer is this trees, and the third layer is the background 3D trees here behind the image or the 3D model itself. And then the fourth layer is our building here with the landscape that we have. That's the fourth layer. And you can see that there is a fifth layer made of whatever street furniture you can put here, like those columns, and that's very basic walkway. You can add here like a sitting area, or I don't know, swing or whatever. And then the last layer is this tree, which is actually a position behind the camera, so you can indicate or you can feel it's existing by the shadow that it casts on the building itself. And that's really a smart thing to be done. And it's, you might look at this visualization, or that's work for that visualizer or architect, and you see just the building. But if you analyze how many layers he starts from the sky, the tree or the 2D image tree, 3D background tree, and then the image itself or the design itself, and then whatever in front, straight in front, the 3D model of the walkway or street furniture, and then whatever you put behind the camera, and which is this tree, which is, you don't actually see it, you just see its shadow casted on the building itself. That's also, you need to learn these techniques, and you need to make this part of your daily work to be a successful architectural visualizer. Another example of the architectural visualization, you can see this image, which is again from Evermotion, and it's totally switch or change your mood. It doesn't have a direct sun. It's look like very early morning, or it's look like dawn. You see the light starting here, and it's really give you a sleepy mode or a very peaceful mood here. That's how 3D Studio Max can control your mood, and that's how you where you put the light, the type of the light you use. You notice that there is no direct sun, just an ambient lighting here. This bluish can make you feel cold or a little bit depressed, calm. It depends on your personality. Same thing you might feel here, even a little bit actually more obvious, the more gloomy here, the cloudy sky actually. So that's again another example of the architectural visualization, and you can see that's a bright, happy midday to sleepy, peaceful, late afternoon or early morning. That's a good series of example, good pictures to represent between the differences that you can gain with the architectural visualization. And here, by architectural visualization, I'm focusing on the exterior part of it actually. The second use, or the second part of our answer of why we use 3D Studio Max, is for design. So whether you are an architect or an interior design, I'm focusing here on the word design. So that's what I always try to focus with my student on, and just drag their attention to it. It's not a visualization, it's tool only. It's not Max. Why you use it, why you keep using it only for making a presentation? You can actually design with the 3D Studio Max rather on just focusing on making your sketches on paper. And it's really easy and sophisticated program that have lots of tools that help you to do that. So this shot can show you a bit of interior perspective, and that's for the exterior part of it, I think. And you can see that the designer actually isn't focusing on any visualization. There's no presentation, merely there's just a shade and shadow, but you can see he's actually designing this. He's making the model or the concept inside the building and finding the relationships of anything or any masses you add with it. 3D Studio Max, instead of just making it a tool that you can just make an extrude or a 3D work of your AutoCAD and just make a presentation for. So if I go to 3D Max, for example, and you can just come here and just design any composition you try to make, and in this composition you can easily manipulate the locations of those objects you add, and you can create as much as you like, change those into any other proportion. You can just select any object you want, change its height, change its proportion easily, and that can help you actually to go quicker with the design rather than just do that on a piece of paper. And really most embarrassing if you try to make this composition and try to change this composition when you make a solid foam model, and you spend serious amount of time trying to make this mass longer or shorter, like you can do it here as you see it with a couple of seconds. So if you are just a student, I'm actually here focusing on my student, the earlier student for first years. I see them wasting serious amount of times trying to make this very basic composition, and they do hours and hours try to add some couple of layers here, or make this thinner, or make this cut. I just want to make this not 100% rectangle, just make it squeeze in that. You can make this in a couple of clicks in a 3D Studio Max rather than wasting a serious amount of time trying to do it in a normal foam model. So that's what I called for basic designing. Max is also a really powerful design tool. You can make any type of modification. It have lots of tools focusing on that, so I highly advise you to focus on this, not to depend on 3D Studio Max only as an architectural visualization tool. The third use of 3D Studio Max is for an interior design visualization. So as you can design exteriors and present it, you can also design interiors and also present it in 3D Studio Max. And that's a couple of shots again made by Evermotion. That's an interior midday shot, and it's a different shots for the same company, and you can see the mood, the materials, the lighting. It's a really highly realistic images, and again, and I love this really image, and I always stop to it and explain that for my student and see that's how powerful effect the visualization can give you. That's even if we have two students and one of them just did the same design, which is as this, one of them is this one, which doesn't have any material or light or any strong ability to have a visualization tool. He is really a good designer, and this guy is he did the same. It's actually the same image, and this guy presented it with a good visualization, material, lighting, rendering techniques. And you can see there is a serious attraction from your client or from your professor that goes to that, and almost no one look at this. Don't put yourself in a really weak position by ignoring 3D Studio Max as a student here, as even as a client, and focus only on design itself, but the visualization is also important. So lots of my students, I noticed they focus only on the design aspects and they ignore all the digital stuff, and that's me telling you this is what you can get even with a really powerful hand drawing or even just modeling in Max. If you ignore using 3D Studio Max as a final software for your presentation, that's what you can get with the same model or with the same design. So you should focus on design and you should focus on 3D Studio Max also. The fourth use for 3D Studio Max is making movies, and a little bit maybe far away from architecture and interior work, but just to cover what 3D Studio Max can do. But again, lots of my students, I see them now start to work on movies and games. So yes, a couple of movies, famous movies. That's Avatar, I think it's a famous movie. It's made also by the help of 3D Studio Max. Iron Man, X-Men, lots of movies actually. Max is very famous software that used by Hollywood and other companies to make very professional high-end movies. Games, my lovely one, that's Warcraft 3. Again, it's made fully by 3D Studio Max, and actually if you go back for a couple of production for Max, you can find lots of Blizzard. That's the game. That's a company that made Warcraft. Actually, they used the final characters of those games. Characters actually they use them for inside 3D Studio Max. Helps. Are really proud. The first time, I think this is made like 15 or 16 years ago, and the quality is still really, really lovely up to the time of making this tutorial. I see lots of my students actually making games, and yes, 3D Studio Max was one of the most software they're using now to do that. That's Arthas, of course. That's the main character of Warcraft. When he was good, when he became not really good. Again, Warcraft is a good example for gaming. Company of Hero 2 also, and one of I think Sega products, and really my favorite one. And again, it's made by 3D Studio Max completely. You can see them realistic fog, splash of water, any type of modeling, whether it's architecture or not even architecture. You can see here tanks, soldiers, organic, environmental design, and even the visual effects with the explosion and reflection and smoke and all that. So the last thing to be talked about, or the purpose of using 3D Max, is a physical simulation. As we see from the company of Hero Images, you can make any kind of splash, any kind of simulation, a physical simulation for water. As you can see here, the water jumping up with each shot it's fall on it. Things breaking down, twister, any kind of destruction. There's actually a plugin or a small software that you can install inside 3D Studio Max that can help you to gain similar effects. Canvas, that goes lovely for the interior designer also. So yes, that's another purpose of using 3D Studio Max, which is to simulate real life events and make animations specifically look more realistic. Now, what are the main fields inside 3D Studio Max, or when you are working with 3D Studio Max, what do you expect to work with? And this is really a nice question, and you must understand that, because it's look like that 3D Studio Max is almost 5 software living and working inside each other. So the first thing is to make the modeling, and which is the science that make you a physical representation of anything, a box, a human, a tree, a building. The material, which actually define each part of that model. Is it a glass? Is it a wood? What is it? You know, like the mental images that came from looking at the model. What is it? Is it plastic? What is it? And then directing. And it's very important which where you put the light, what type of camera you use, the composition, and even the rendering animation, which is really important. And it's just to make a movie. Actually all the cinematic animations or movies you see, it's a part of a digital animation at a specific level. And the final thing is the visual effects or the VFX, which is very nice. It's anything, just to be easy, it's anything you cannot model as a physical model. So it's the fog, fire, reflections, all that can be covered in visual effects. And there's lots of softwares actually that can do only visual effects or only animation or only material or only even modeling. And nice thing in 3D Studio Max is that it actually can do them all. And that's again why learning 3D Studio Max can be a little bit a complicated issue or process. And I see lots of students complain about that. I know, because you're actually learning five software in the same program. So just be patient, and I guarantee that you can find that a lovely process. So in modeling, which is the first step, the 3D model is a representation of any three-dimensional surfaces or surface via a specialized software. Or modeling is the science of making digital forms of any existing or imaginary object, or objects inside a computer using a software. Modeling can be a simple chair, a modeling can be a simple chair or a house or even an entire city. So that's a nice two definition for what is modeling. And again, it can be a chair, it can be the interior of a house, and it can be the exterior or the entire city. So all those are models, and you can see that there is no material or almost no good lighting in it. So that's what we call it modeling. The second thing is the material. Material is actually a data that you can assign to any surface or any object that actually make it appear to a specific render, or actually make you feel that it's a glass or it's a wood or whatever the mental images that can give this material can give to your brain. So you can see that you can change this to green or to blue to make this a picture of a child or whatever thing in your water, while the modeling only does not give you that indication. So you will need the material to tell your brain that this is sea water, this is a pool water, this is wood, and that's a plastic, and so on and so on. And this image also can tell you that what's the difference between the material and the model or no material case. That's just a model and with a little bit of lighting, while here just a model, light, and material. So you can see the difference, how the floor actually is been turned into a nice wooden. That's the leather, and that's the fire, and all that you can gain by the baking of the nice material for your model. The third part, which we call it here directing, it's a little bit of a wide field. It's like you are the director of an entire movie. You control the scene. You control what to be put in your image or in animation. It's basically your ability to control the light, camera composition, and the rendering itself. So lighting or illumination is the deliberate use of light to achieve a particular or aesthetic effects. Lighting includes the use of both artificial light sources like lamps and light fixture, as well as the natural illumination by capturing daylight. So it's all your game. You can use the daylight, suns, and you can use the artificial lights if you like, or you can make both effects of both use of those two resources. So lights are objects that simulate real light, such as a household or official office lamp. The light instruments used in stage and film work, or you can even model the sun itself. So that's what we call it, lighting. And that's a basic lighting here. It's been added for a night shot. You can see that this boxes has been added light to them, and you start to get the effect of light here, a little bit getting darker when you go away from that. that's the exterior daylight, and here the exterior night view light. That difference between daylight and night lighting. Again, it could be just a pure sophisticated interior lights with a mixer for a sunlight system that came from this big curtain wall dropping on the ground, and just and adding to it, sorry, an artificial ceiling light. So that's a lighting here you can get is just a combination between a sunlight and artificial light and an interior lighting scene. Even Macs allow you make a real simulation for the light, so you can, if you need to know how many lux and lumen and all that detailed daylight calculation, you can make this simulation, and it can tell you that how much light actually falling on a specific points near to the light, to the window when direct light fall, or even when you go straight far away from it. So you can use that also as a professional lighting work. Camera, which is the second thing of directing, is actually you and where you want to look, how you want to look, and the type of curvature. It's really a cinematic skill that you need to learn, how to make the image look good or look normal, or you can look it from above or look it from a lower part of the looking level, and what is the psychological effects you want to gain, what you actually want to show from your building. Camera is a really important part of your design or visualization design. I saw lots of students who really have a really nice model, and they just put the camera in the wrong place and ending by having a very bad result. And I saw lots of students who have big buildings and they just design one elevation of it in Max, and they focus on putting their camera in the correct position that cover up all the bad or undone or unfinished work, and they end up by very good result. So being smart with where to put the camera is really a key part of your design. Composition can be defined as the ability to position, rotate, here rotate twice, and present a group of objects in order to create a dramatic or a representative scene. It's really important. It's where to put those, where to put these tiles, how to put those bars, a little bit of details in anything you add. It's really the key aspect of the architectural work is how to make your composition, how to relate the objects to each other, how to put the furniture, how to help the street furniture or the interior furniture if you are an interior designer. All that is a really part of our architectural sense, or as a designer sense, that you have to really understand and sometimes even to study to gain more professional results. Finally is rendering, and rendering is actually changing the 3D Studio Max. I'll leave this for you. You can pause it if you want more explanation or elaborate definition for it, but I prefer the easy way. So you see, it's actually help you to change this 3D wireframed unrealistic part of your work into this more realistic end up results for your work. So rendering is that process that take whatever you can see in the viewport as a 3D Max object and give it to you as a JPG or a BMP image that you can print a final resolution high realistic image, and then you can print it and you can submit it to your submission or your client or your professor. So it's really important, and rendering is really time consuming, a process that's actually drive us crazy. Sometimes you need to buy really expensive and fancy PCs or laptops and spending lots of money, losing lots of amount of time trying to gain this image quicker and change it from 3D wireframing here to a realistic image. This could be taken minutes, or sometimes it could be taken 24 hours or a day. So you have to be very smart what to put in the rendering process, how to control the setting of it, and what size of rendering, the resolution. You don't need to make very big resolution for a very early submission, and you lose lots of time on that. Don't put lots of rendering detail in the early submission, so you can get this results quicker, and maybe 1 hour or 2 hours. And when you have the design fixed, you can go ahead, increase the lighting detail, the resolution of the image, and then go make a crazy big rendering resolution that can be print on A1 or an A0, which can take days, but at least you are sure and test this images a couple of times before with a very low quality rendering or speedy rendering, and then you go and make the final big slow render that you're going to print. And now the animation, which is the fourth part. We said the Max do modeling, we do material, we do directing. The fourth part here of what Max can do is animation, and animation is an illusion of motion, and you can just make any couple of images of an object changing its location. It's giving you the illusion of that object is jumping or moving. Very simple example that I show you here in this bouncing ball. It's actually not bouncing, it's just a couple of 6 shots, as you can see here in this part. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can put them in 3D Studio Max and yeah, dedicate around 30 single frame images and then move the slider for it. You can just get this illusion of this image bouncing. Animation is really required by architect and interior designer nowadays, and it's really an independent actually science now. Lots of people work as animator with a very high end salaries. They don't even do any modeling or materialing or anything. They just do the animation part, which really can be a hard and time consuming process, and it's really profitable at the same time. The final thing that 3D Studio Max can do is the visual effect or VFX. It's actually the science of making anything that isn't or hasn't a physical, it isn't a physical model. It doesn't have a physical representation, or an obvious at least a physical representation. So I'll leave this slide for you to read if you need more information. But for me, again, the easy way is, for example, to express what's the visual effects is the fire, for example, in this image. It doesn't have like a fixed model. It doesn't have a fixed shape. It's always changing. That's what we call it visual effect. See this image on the left for the planet Earth wireframe here. It's really crispy and nice. You can add a visual effect to it and you make it blurry like this one. Lots of things: fog, fire, glare, smoke, noise, all that. You don't need to physically model them. It's an effect that you can add to the camera or after the rendering, or that's really an entire softwares that can do this for you. But you can also make a really nice result of visual effects inside 3D Studio Max. This visual effects can push reality really far away and help you to create really professional images and reduce the eyes or the client eyes feeling that this is a graphic. You can see that it's more realistic a little bit, and that's depend on how far and how good you are in visual effects. So I wish that you find this slides useful for you. That's my referencing. I highly advise you to understand these topics, or why we need Max, really to focus on the need of understanding Max as a presentation tool and as a design tool, as a visualization tool, as a design tool, not only to focus it as a visualization. Thank you very much for your listening, and have a good day. Thank you and bye.